So Chris is a scientist based at the University of Birmingham. He's a chemist, which is why I have also put the periodic table behind me. And Chris has also been to the Science in the Park live with us in the past. He's done a number of really exciting experiments. So today he's going to talk a little bit about surfaces. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you very much, Adrian. I'm Chris Hamlett, and today I'm going to talk about awesome surfaces. So basically my interest is in surface science, also about foams and stuff. And today I'm going to talk about some work I've been doing with Zeiss. Surfaces basically make up the bit of a material that interacts with the outside world. So there's lots of interesting features on a surface. So how can you actually see these? First of all, you can use a magnifying glass. They can generally get magnifications of up to about 70 times. Or you can use an optical microscope to see things like cells or things. These can get to magnifications of about 1500 or so. That's about as far as you can get with light. So you can use electrons, which can look at even smaller features. So this is a scanning electron microscope. This one is one of Zeiss's ones, and you can see things up to about a magnification of 100,000 times. But if that is not enough magnification, you can always fire electrons through a material and get some magnifications of about 1 million in a transmission electron microscope. So this image here is one of a strand of DNA using a transmission electron microscope. On the left is a computer-generated model of this strand, and on the right, you can actually see the atoms themselves within the strand of DNA. So that's how powerful the transmission electron microscope is. But today, I'm going to focus on the scanning electron microscope, which my friends Zeiss have got me some images. So I'm going to show a series of awesome surfaces in nature and discuss what they are. So, awesome surface one. What do people think that this could be? These are like scaly structures. You can see the scale bar there is 60 micrometers, so that's 60 millionths of a meter. And that scale bar is about the width of a human hair, maybe slightly less. But these scales are actually, they're not scales on a fish or anything, they're of this Morpho butterfly. It's absolutely gorgeous butterfly. And if we have a look at the colour of it, you can see this gorgeous iridescence of it. This is beautiful deep blue metallic colour. And you can also see a little bit of the wing there that I cut off to get that image. So poor butterfly. But let's have a closer look at the structure. So if we zoomed out slightly from that image before, we're looking at these scales at 200, the scale bar is 200 micrometers or 200 millionths of a meter. We zoom into the image we had before, but you can, on each of these scales, you can see these regular stripes on there. So let's have a look a bit closer to those. Let's look around here. And you can see these little ridges here. The scale bar down there is about 2 millionths of a meter. You can see these ridges are sort of almost look like they're piled up. So we can look at the tip of the scale. And here you've got these ridges again, and these other beautiful, intricate little structures on the right at the tips of the scales. And if we zoom further in, you can see that these ribs are layered structures with little struts in between. And this higher magnification image, the scale bar is 800 nanometers, and that's 800 billionths of a meter. So these gaps cause any light coming in to bounce around inside the structure and only allow blue light out. So that butterfly has not got any pigments in. It's all down to this structure, and it's called structural colour. So there's no pigments, just structure. And different kinds of butterflies have different spacings between these ribs to have different colours. Okay then, on to awesome surface 2, which is possibly my favourite. So this is like a hairy bump with little rough hairy bump, and these are about 4 millionths of a metre in size. So you might want to have a little think for a couple of seconds what that might be. Let's have a look at the chat, see if... Oh. So this is actually a lotus leaf. So the lotus leaf lives in ponds in dry, arid regions, and the leaves can get very, very dusty. So any rain that comes has to clean the leaf in order for the leaf to photosynthesize. So the lotus, you may have heard the term lotus effect, and this is where it comes from because of the water repellent nature of this surface. So here's an actual dried lotus leaf that I've got from a local Chinese supermarket, and they're about 2 feet wide. That's a foot-long ruler. And then here, if we look at droplets on this leaf, you can see they skate along the surface, whizzing off. And if you can see there, if I hold a droplet on there, you can see the bumpy nature of the surface. So that droplet, there's actually acting like a little magnifying glass, which is also pretty cool. But if we use the scanning electron microscope, because why not, it's awesome, we can see that this surface has got lots and lots of these hairy bumps on. So that's a scale bar there of 20 millionths of a metre. We zoom in to that image we had before, but let's zoom in a bit further to 800 nanometers. You can see all these little cylinders there, hollow cylinders. These are like hairs on the bump. And these are actually a kind of wax called an epicurial wax, I think. But these give a roughness to the surface and also a chemical hydrophobicity. So water hates oil, so it will roll off, trapping air underneath. For more of that, check out my talk at 12. So this is, these are water repellent surfaces due to this rough, waxy structure. But not all leaves behave like that. So a holly leaf is waxy. But if you put water on it, it doesn't roll off in the same way a lotus leaf does. So let's have a look at the microstructure of this. So you can see this is a 200 micrometer scale bar, and it's fairly flat. So it hasn't got that rough structure of the lotus leaf. So this is why it can't trap the air and underneath the droplet and roll off. But if we look at a bit more zoomed in, you can see these little coffee bean-like structures. And these are really, really hairy and bumpy. So these are the stomata. So they need to be rough and water repellent so the leaf can breathe. But the rest of it isn't as rough, so it's not as water repellent as the lotus. Okay, the third awesome surface. This again is a water repellent one. And these is a duck feather. So you may have heard the term the water off a duck's back. So when ducks are swimming around, diving down to eat sunken bread or anything like that, they come up and you can see the water flowing off them with this silvery layer underneath. And that is trapped air called the plastron. So if we have a look at this, the water zooming off, and we'll have a look at the microstructure, and you can see how rough that is as well. So this has got the duck feather has got this rough structure that can trap air, but only if the duck puts an oily layer on it. So when you see ducks preen themselves, they've got a gland, I think it's around the beak, that puts some layer of oil on there, which is water repellent. And this rough structure amplifies that water repellency. Okay, so here's the last lot of structures that Zeiss got for me. This is a nature-inspired surface. This is a gecko pad that you can use to slap on your car when the dashboard to hold your phone. So if we have a video, here's a plastic surface, I just slap it on and you can see how well that sticks. There's absolutely no adhesive on here, it's all down to the surface structure. So that sort of more redder bits of contact there, that's in what's known as conformal contact or very intimate contact. So if we look under the microscope, we've got these regular line structures. So this higher magnification at 40 millionths of a meter, you can see how the size. But this is inspired by a gecko, but unfortunately these gecko, I didn't have a gecko to send to Zeiss. So these images you're about to see are from this paper that the reference is at the top, if you want to know more. But if we, from this paper, this article showed some SEM images of the gecko's pad. So on the gecko's foot, you've got these ridges on its toes, and then zoom in, they're hairy. But what's also really, really cool is on the end of these hairs are more hairs. So you've got this tiny hairs at the end of more hairs, and these can basically penetrate any small cracks and roughnesses on a surface, allowing the gecko huge contact area with the surface, making use of what's called van der Waals forces. So the more area you've got in contact, the more friction you've got, and the harder it is to slide them across the surface. So if you sort of think about interleaving two books, the more pages you interleave, the harder it is to fall apart. Okay, so that's a quick look at some fantastically awesome surfaces in nature. So I'd love to thank Zeiss for taking those images for me, Henry Royce for sponsoring my post at Discover Materials. So Henry Royce is the UK National Advanced Materials Institute, and Discover Materials, we're a working group to try and extol the virtues of material science and tell the public how wonderful it is.
Thank you very much, Chris. That's wonderful. And as Chris said, he will be back again in a little bit to continue his discussion.